Once I became a dad, my life trajectory just went on a steeper learning curve in every sense of the word. In every sense of the question, that answer needs to be asked. It could be your kid asking you, why dad? Like, why dad? Are you going to take the time to answer that? Or are you just going to say like, oh yeah, it's sky's blue because, you know, the angel painted it that way or whatever, like, are you going to
Right.
give them a legit answer? Or if you don't know the answer, are you going to figure it out with them? Or why be a dad? Like whether that's I'm not a dad yet and I'm considering being a dad,
Right.
or I am a dad and like, why should I show up as a dad?
Welcome to the Daughter Podcast, where fathers become everyday heroes in their daughters' lives. Grow, evolve, and lead with love. Here's your host, Oscar Pena.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daughter Podcast. Oscar here, your local growing girl dad. Today with Paul, who is another growing girl dad, and we're just going to chop it up today, talk about Paul's story, which is a powerful one, and then also just growing up as dads. Paul, how are you?
Yeah, doing well, Oscar. Thanks for having me. Super stoked. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with that aspect more. I feel like once I became a dad, my life trajectory just went on
Yeah.
a steeper curve, as it will, a steeper learning curve in every sense of the word. But I've gotten to know myself better,
Right.
and become more of the person I want to be. So I agree with that.
Yeah. One thing we've mentioned many times in the show is how our kids are mirrors, like mirrors of you. And you find out a lot about yourself once the kids are there, right? Which is kind of
Hmm.
cool too, because you have the Why Dad podcast now. And I couldn't figure out the question, like why dad, as in why dads are here, or like why even be a father, right? So explain
Hmm.
that a little bit to me.
Yeah. Well, I love that you had that little conundrum because that is actually intended. Um, because it's like, yeah, I mean, in every sense of the word, like we debated whether to have the comma in there or not, but in every sense of the question, like that answer needs to be asked. It could be your kid asking you, why dad? Like, why dad? And are you
Ah,
going
I
to take
didn't
the,
even think of that one. That's
yeah,
true.
like, and I mean, that they ask that a lot, right?
A lot, yeah.
Um, so like, are you going to take the time to answer that? Or are you just going to say like, oh yeah, it's sky's blue because, you know, the angel painted it that way or whatever, like, are you going to
Right.
give them a legit answer? Or if you don't know the answer, are you going to figure it out with them or what? What's your answer going to be? Or like, as you alluded to, like, okay, like why, why, why be a dad? Like whether that's I'm not a dad yet and I'm considering being a dad,
Right.
or I am a dad and like, why should I show up as a dad?
Right.
Um, and then, any way that you want to spin that question, I think it's worth considering what your answer is for that. So yeah, I love that, it kind of threw you for a little bit of a loop. And that's kind of intended.
It did throw me for a loop. And it's interesting the way that you put that, because I didn't think about the first one, which you're absolutely right. The why is, man, sometimes I just, I know I don't do it, guys, I promise. But sometimes I'm like, just stop. Just stop asking me why. Like, I don't want to answer any more questions. So, yes, that's accurate. And then the other thing that I found interesting is what you mentioned, which leads to your co-host, who is not a father, but is now essentially contemplating why be a father and how he does want to be a father. So I find that really interesting that question made me think in different directions, but that's also like, you're a dad, but he's not a dad, but why even be a father? Like, that was really cool how y'all played into that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're hoping to dig into that more. I love my co-host and I. We go way back, all the way back to high school, um, and I love having him on both as like a friend and like part of the support network, but
Yeah.
also to kind of like remind me of what that perspective is, um, like before having a kid, because like once you have a kid, your perspective changes and you're no longer not a dad, right? So it's nice to kind of have that fresh perspective, that kind of quote unquote ignorance, not that he's ignorant, but you just don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
right? Until you're in the thick of it. And then also, I just love that he wants to have these conversations. I wish I had been as intentional
Right.
before I was a dad, because
Right.
I knew, like, once my wife and I were dating and got married, like, we knew we were going to have kids. That was without a doubt. But, like, we were just flying by the seats of our pants. It's like, we'll figure it out, right? Like, our parents figured it out. We turned out okay. You know, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I have no regrets about that per se. But at the same time, if there had been the opportunity to be a little bit more intentional, to kind of consider these things a little bit more,
Yep.
to shape the trajectory of my life based off of, you know, my future family, you know, I would have appreciated that, I think, but, you know, on the other side, you know, no use crying over spilled milk. You know, life is as it is.
Yeah.
And it's just about moving forward. So
Yeah.
I want to learn what I can as I'm going on, and hopefully we can trigger those questions for other dads out there and for other aspiring dads.
There's a company extremely dedicated to restoring the dignity of hard work and the relentless pursuit of greatness. That company is Fuel Hunt, and I am honored and humbled to have them as our sponsor. They have built a community that is all about choosing discipline over comfort and taking pride in the journey, because comfort is a slow death. Their clothing isn't just apparel or fight gear, it is our uniform. 100% American made, Fuel Hunt clothing is a daily reminder for me and those around me that I am committed to being among the few who truly hunt for their goals. Join the movement today and wear your ambition proudly. Everybody wants to eat, but only a few will hunt. Follow the link in the show notes and use GrillDad at checkout for 10% off your purchase. Well, take us into that side of you. So give us a little bit about your background. Take us into that life prior to, obviously, kids and when you were growing up, but then lead us into your life as a father.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll try to give kind of the Cliff Notes version. But I will go back to how I was raised. So I was one of 9 kids. Grew up in a Catholic and military family.
You said 9?
Yeah, I'm number 3 of 9. Yep.
Like almost 2 hands full?
Yeah, exactly.
Holy moly. Sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah. No, yeah. Fun little fact, I'm sure there are wider age gaps, but there's 22 years between the oldest and the youngest.
That's nuts.
Yeah. And the youngest he just graduated high school this year. So he just started college. So yeah, quite a fun range there. But definitely plays into who I am and my desire to be a dad, and what type of dad I aim to be. So yeah, military family, moved around a bunch. We were homeschooled until I went to high school, which was an all boys boarding school, and it was geared towards the Catholic priesthood. Okay. After which I did join the seminary, and I was in there for 3 years. So being a dad was not always a foregone conclusion for me. For a while, like as a kid, I wanted to be a priest. Fast forward to 2014, I'm back home. I had been for several years. Home was Utah at the time. That's where my dad retired from active duty. And I was 24 and my mom succumbed to cancer, years of battling cancer. So we lost our mom, and I didn't know it at the time, but I didn't know like how to deal with that and how to process that, as you know, many who lose their parents early probably can relate with. So that was one of my justifications for hightailing it out of Utah.
Okay.
And I ended up in Minnesota. And I thought I was just going to be here a couple of years, and here I am 11 years later. I met Sarah here. She is now my wonderful wife of 6 years. We had our eldest, Evie. She's now 4.5. And then we also now have Liam, who is nearly 8 months old. In between Evie and Liam, my wife was pregnant 2 times, and the first one, we call her Amelia David. She was probably like 7. I think she Sarah miscarried at 7 weeks.
Okay.
And that was brutal enough. And I know you and your spouse have your own experience with that. And then, after that, we tried again, and Sarah was pregnant with our second known daughter, who we called Isla Marie. And without getting like too much into the weeds of that story, Isla was born. Sarah went into early labor when Isla was 22 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And Isla was born. The doctors did everything they could to, keep her alive, but ultimately they couldn't. And so we like to think that she was with us for 30 minutes. We don't know exactly how long she was with us. But that was, that pretty much derailed who we were as a family, as individuals, as parents, as a couple. And Sarah went through some pretty dark times after that. And she was processing and grieving Isla in her way and me in my way. And, and our relationship with Isla was entirely different. But I was left with, and this kind of answers your question of like, who I am as a father today. And it also answers the unasked question of like, why dad?
Right.
But I was left like, okay, I'm left here taking care of my family, both my wife and my child. And I'm tired. I don't know how to do this. It's the end of the day, and none of us have energy to do anything, and this just, I can't go on this way. Like, I need to do more for my wife. I need to do more for Evie. But I didn't know how. I didn't know how practically, and I didn't know how, because I just had like no energy. Right. So that kind of led me on a journey of figuring out who I am as an individual, who I wanted to be, both for myself, for Sarah, for Evie, and for Isla. Because I was left asking myself, like, okay, like, we lost Isla, so I'm never going to be able to like be her dad on her. I'll never be able to show her like the type of dad I am or how much I love her. So I was left with the question, well, like, how do I show Isla that she is loved and that she has a loving and caring family? And my answer was, I want to be the best dad possible for Evie and her future siblings. And by that, Isla, who I believe is in heaven, will see that she has a loving, caring, kick-ass dad. But I was like, okay, so how do I do that? And I was listening to different podcasts and reading books and whatever. But I still had a lot of unanswered questions. And so my answer was like, I'm just kind of similar to what you're doing here with Doddard. I'm just going to go and start talking to a bunch of dads, and asking these questions and trying to figure out, what does it mean to be a dad? Like, why does it matter? And how? Like, how do I do that? So kind of a very long-winded answer. I know I started off with saying Cliff Notes, but definitely wasn't that. But yeah, long-winded answer of kind of a little bit of my background, and then a little bit more in the details of our recent journey and what brought me here today.
Now, so you had your first child. I'm going to say this naively, obviously, because I don't know the full story, but your first child was relatively problem-free. regular pregnancy. So you guys already like pregnancy and childbirth, like all look normal to you at this point.
Yep.
Right. And then your wife unfortunately has a miscarriage on the second child. Now, hey, if you enjoy the Daughter Podcast, you'll love what we've got waiting for you at daughterpodcast.com. As soon as you visit, you'll be prompted to join our new email newsletter, a resource packed with valuable insights, practical tips, and powerful perspectives straight from our podcast episodes and incredible guests. Don't miss out on the chance to join the community and strengthen your journey as a father. Visit daughterpodcast.com today and subscribe, because great dads never stop growing. For us, it was flip script, right? So it's like the first child was a miscarriage. So it was almost like, and we've talked about this in the podcast before, where mom knows the kid for 9 months, like knows the ins and outs and the pains and in all the things that this child now has brought to her specifically. Dad's just like in panic mode. How do I provide? What do they need? Is a room ready? I mean, all these superficial things ultimately. And then with my friend Brant, we were just talking about this, where now you hold your child and within a split second, you're like, what the heck? Like, how do I even like you? Who are you that you did this to me, kind of thing, right? Like it flips so quick. So when I think of that and, having the first one being a miscarriage, you're like, okay, well, I say me as in like the father knucklehead kind of thing. Like, all right, well, I go to, let's make sense of this. Go on the computer, like, oh, okay, cool. And talk to the doctor. Got it. So this was, her body was doing the right thing because it was not going to be a viable thing, and her body took care of it, and it's working properly, blah, 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 blah. Mistake to go tell her that, right? Because she feels completely different.
Yeah.
But it's ignorance at that point. It's the first one. We don't know what that's like. I can't imagine, honestly, to be in your guys' shoes, to be like, first one, no problems. Everything went well. We have our child here. I'm now a dad. And your brain is already moving in the dad mode, not in the panic mode. I mean, maybe panic because I still panic every day, but but you're already going in this direction, and then boom, you hit this massive wall of like, now what, right?
Yeah.
And so talk to me a little bit about that. This is even before Isla is here.
Yeah.
Like, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first off, how something you said made me think of when Evie, our oldest, was born, and how like that's when it becomes extremely real. And I have probably the most vivid image here, and we're all dads here, so this is not what's the word? This is not uncharted territory for your listeners.
Yeah.
But my most vivid memory from Evie being born is when she was literally being pulled out, and the doctor had her, like, was holding her by her head,
Right.
like pulling her out, and I see like this white alien form like coming out of my wife, and I was like, what the heck, like I didn't, for a second I didn't even see like a human child. It literally was in my brain like this is like some like alien thing.
Yeah.
And obviously she's not, and she's our wonderful rambunctious 4.5-year-old Evie now. But I think that moment is kind of a good description, at least for me personally, of the shock of like all of a sudden becoming a dad. And it's like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into.
Yep.
I have no idea like what to do with this creature, even though, I mentioned I'm one of 9, like I was number 3 of 9. So like I had changed diapers, I had given bottles, I had, dealt with little kids running around. So that part wasn't foreign to me, but like now I'm responsible for this creature.
Right.
And for their future, and helping them become the individuals that they want to become. But like, it's just all foreign to me, and I didn't know how. So anyway, that image changed my mind.
And by the way, I just want to point out, like, I remember very distinctly watching the movie Alien And there was a part, and I can't tell you when because it's been a long time, when there's like a moving thing underneath the skin,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yep.
I saw that for the first time with our first child, and it literally made me want to run out of the room because that's all I thought about was there's an alien. There's got to be an alien in there because I just watched this, not too long ago. So I just wanted to throw that out because it is
Yeah.
absolutely an alien thing, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great extension of the example because, for us as dads, like we're completely third parties to the pregnancy and to the journey and to everything. And you mentioned it, like the mom, our wives are like intertwined with the whole process
Right.
intrinsically from beginning to end, both for a successful pregnancy and for unsuccessful pregnancies.
Right.
And for them, it isn't an alien, or at least I can only speak to my wife. But like for my wife, it's not an alien creature inside of her. She's already building this bond and getting to know the child inside of her.
Yeah.
And for us, it might be a little scary, it might be intimidating, it might be but like for Sarah, like every heartbeat, every little hand punch, every foot kick that she felt, every little alien movement inside of her, that was like a beautiful thing. And then so second pregnancy, to get to your original question.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, like the different experiences between you and your wife and my wife and I, because on the one hand, like we now had the expectation of a successful pregnancy and we know everything's good. And she has that to look forward to. On the other hand, and I know this is something that Sarah has dealt with, and I know, many women deal with this, like the pregnancy with Amelia David and with Isla, like she was left with feelings of failure because she strongly identifies as a mother, as, the individual in our family who's going to grow our family. And when we lost Amelia David, she's like, I failed at that. My body, like you talked about how your wife's body was doing what it needed to do and was working just fine. We went through something similar on the flip side where Sarah's like, my body failed me. Like I failed our family. And like, who cares about the science of it? Unfortunately, like that's how she felt and that's how she saw it. And
it's an emotional response. Absolutely.
Yep. And I think it's both having the child inside of her and then the expectations of what is to come, knowing the beauty of pregnancy that lay ahead and then the years and years of potential memories.
Right.
So for me, as the husband, as Paul, like the miscarriage, like didn't really resonate with me as much as it did with Sarah. Right. But it shook her. It shook her to the core. And I was left even then with Amelia David wondering, and those listening might be wondering like, okay, well, like why did we name our child? But for us, it kind of a tangent here. It helped us kind of give her identity, Amelia David, and we kind of arbitrarily chose Amelia first and referred to her as a her, just arbitrarily. But it helps us kind of give her an identity and kind of build that relationship with her. Even though we'll never have that relationship we have with Evie and are now building with Liam, we still recognize her as part of our family, and we believe that she's in heaven, and part of our family from up there. So there's that. But yeah, I was just left like, how do I help Sarah through this? Right. And I think there was a shift somewhere along the lines between Amelia David and Isla Marie of recognizing that it's not so much as like something to get through or to help Sarah through, but just to kind of recognize how it affects Sarah and help her recognize how it affects her and help her understand how she wants to process it and how she needs to process it. And that was true for both pregnancies, of just kind of on a smaller scale with Amelia. So one of the things that we did to kind of help build that relationship with Amelia, because really that was the greatest sense of loss, was that we won't be able to build that relationship with her, especially for Sarah. So naming her was one thing we did. And then the other thing we did was my sister-in-law is an artist, and we commissioned her to draw a portrait of my grandpa, whose name is David, after whom, and Sarah's grandma, Amelia. So both of those, our baby was named after. Mm-hmm. And then my mom, Joyce, holding a baby to represent Amelia David, in kind of a serene setting. And that kind of helped us. It did help us build that relationship, identify that relationship, or define that relationship, and give us a way to honor her and her memory. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like some of the process on my end of like, okay, how do I need to show up for Sarah? And then a couple of the practical things that we did to get through it.
Right. And as you mentioned with Amelia, she was never in your hands, right? Like, and I don't know, I have not like verified this or found the science to it, but as I was talking to another one of my guests, they were talking about how when you have your child, when they finally come out, there's this smell that the father will essentially bond to, which we talked about in a weird context, because we talked about how, as you mentioned, this alien comes out and it's not a pretty sight, but you never, at least for me, I was never, once I like got close to her, there was never that like disgust of the sight or the smell of flesh and all the things that are happening in the background, because all of a sudden I'm like, holy moly, like I kind of like you, like what's going on?
Yeah.
So, you know, I can understand your position, I think, with Amelia, but then talk to me about with Isla, because you physically were able to hold Isla, mm-hmm. and you said she was with you about 30 minutes or so. So how, I mean, I can't imagine for your wife to go through that. And we don't have to necessarily talk about that if you don't want, but definitely give us a little bit of view of your lens at that moment.
Yeah. So, I mean, we could dig into this whole process, you know, and it would take us a whole episode, you know, depending on how deep we wanted to dig. But from my lens, the whole situation was entirely traumatic. Sarah had already been in the hospital for several days due to the pregnancy complications. But at this point, there is 99% chance that everything was going to resolve itself, and she was just being hospitalized for just on the off chance, you know, like that less than 1% chance that things should go south. And I was back down in Lakeville, where we live, which is 30 minutes away from, more like 40 minutes away from where Sarah was hospitalized. Situating my then 2-year-old daughter with her grandparents, my in-laws, and then my sister had just flown into town earlier that day. And I get a call from Sarah, like, I'm in labor. You know, like, just
not expected.
Not expected, and the absolute last thing, like, you want to hear. So it's like, okay, right. I was already pulling out of the driveway, but then, so I turn that 40, 50-minute drive into 30 minutes or less, like as any dad would.
Of course.
And, it's just a silent drive, except for me yelling, like just getting like, I don't even know what I said, but I just had to get it out. And I get there, and so she was 22 weeks along. I think the doctors had just told us that Isla had, at that point, a 33% chance of surviving that young. And if she did survive, she had a 33% chance of living without hardly any repercussions. So not the best odds, but like we're holding on to that,
Of course.
that chance, that hope. I get there. Thankfully, I get there in time, because if she had already been in the OR and the doors had been shut, I would have had to wait outside. But I get there, and I get scrubbed up, and I'm in there, and Sarah is literally, strapped down to the table, and the doctors are working on her. And I don't know. It was just a feeling of helplessness, because I was just sitting there and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even hold on to Sarah's hands because her arms were strapped down.
Yeah.
So all I could do was just like be there by her head and like say words that were hopefully comforting and consoling. Not that there are many words at that time that can help, and just to be there. And then while Isla was alive for 30 minutes, like those 30 minutes, the doctors were working on her. So she had been born for 10 minutes and we didn't even know.
Oh, wow.
Because the doctors had just like removed her from Sarah. Like we couldn't see anything beyond the sheet. And we're working on her. And then like somebody came over and was like, oh yeah, your daughter is out and doctors are working on her. And like her oxygen levels are at X and her, her heart rate is at Y. And so we knew that at that point she was born. And at the end of their efforts, they brought her over, and, so Sarah got to have her skin to skin. And in her, what we like to think of Isla's last moments. And, I don't know. There are no words to describe that. One, like I never, and I would do this every single time, but like I never got to hold her alive, Isla. I would let Sarah hold her every single time. But yeah, you have your 22-week-old daughter there, and yeah, there's just like, not to be crass or anything, but like for me, it's just like, I mean, that's the end of the road, right? Like
Right. Yep.
the end of one road and then the beginning of the next. And,
Right.
but what I did know was that we were going to get through it. And that, we had the choice ahead of us to either let it break us as individuals and as a family, or to overcome it and let it shape us into stronger individuals and stronger family. And that was kind of our battle cry or mantra for the next 24 to 48 hours that we were in the hospital. Is like, we love each other. We're going to help each other through it, like come what may. And that's just what we had to do, is we just had to take it one step at a time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that really gives us that context that I think a lot of us don't have, as far as when you started talking today on the show and you were talking about exhaustion, right? I mean, that takes exhaustion to a whole new level, because that tiredness that I'm talking about is not physical, It's emotional, and it is psychologically exhausting. And that's something that you don't, just like you're talking right now, you don't just let that go. It's not like you went to sleep and I feel great now. And so that exhaustion can absolutely start to wear on everything else that you do, not to mention your kids. And at this point, you have a 2-year-old already, and you still have to come back and show up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great way to, like, a great thing to highlight. And, I share these details, not like to throw a pity party or look for sympathy or anything, but I think as men and as dads, we so often feel that weight of like, okay, like we're not the ones bearing the children. We're not the ones on the OR table. We're not the ones going into labor. So like, what do we do? Like, we're the ones who support. We're the strong ones. We bring our family through the darkness, come what may. And I think we bear a lot of responsibility, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and sometimes to a fault, where it's like, we can't break. We have to be the strong oak for our family. But I share this story, one, to kind of hopefully normalize talking about grief and loss, because putting it in a closet and ignoring and forgetting about it, I don't think is the way. It's not healthy, and it's not the way that we can fully become who we want to become and who we're meant to be. So that's one reason. And the other is to show, like, I mean, at least me personally, like, I was lost. I wasn't broken, but I sure as heck wasn't up to the task. And if I had tried to just tough it out and, be that strong oak, I would have broken. So I think that there is a better answer, and that's still being strong, but in a different sense, and taking the bull by the horns, and, rather than leading the family from the front, and them following behind, like leading the family, like, this is the picture in my head of, like, my arms around my wife, and our kids either in tow or on our shoulders or whatever, but like, that's how we lead our family, like connected as one, moving forward. So that's why I'm sharing this story.
What's something that you did to get you to that mindset? Because as you mentioned, that's a lot to go through. And I agree with what you're saying. I also want to be the oak. Like, I want to be strong for my family. But to your point, you can do that in a silo and end up breaking, because there's no real psychological way to be able to do that without having negative repercussions to that, right? And we see that a lot. I was just watching this psychologist talking about how men tend to take fear, frustrations, and like something else, and it comes back as it's anger most of the time, as for men, right? And so that's not good. Like, you still have to show up for your kids, and you could do that and let it manifest as anger, and your kid just sees you as this angry mad dude all the time. That's no good. So I want to be the strong one. I want to be the rock. And yet at the same time, I tell everybody, and I believe this to my heart, like, my wife is our rock. And I say that because she's our center and definitely my rock. That's the person that I can go to figure some of these things out, so that, as you mentioned, we can lead together, right? So tell me a little bit of, like, your mindset as to how you got to that, or through that, and then to say, all right, this is how we're going to get through this. And because it takes, I have to imagine, man, it takes a lot of work to do that. Because psychologically, you're tired, right? What did you have to do to get to the point where it's like, not necessarily just to be positive. Anybody can put on a smile and move forward. That's exactly what you're talking about. But we're talking about actually getting to a point mentally where you're like, this is what we're going to do. And this is what I'm going to do about it. Meaning talk to my wife, go get therapy, whatever it is. Like what was it that got you to get to that point?
Yeah, that's a great and very deep question. It was a bunch of different things, and it's still a work in progress. And it definitely didn't happen overnight.
We're all a work in progress, brother. I tell you that right now.
There are a few key things that come to my mind. One is therapy. You mentioned therapy, and I knew my wife needed to get into therapy to process the loss of Isla and the physical and emotional trauma that she went through. I felt hopeless. She felt even more hopeless, strapped to that table, being cut into, and just like having zero control over anything. So one of the things I did is like, okay, I will start therapy with you, like alongside with you.
Okay.
I'll start therapy if you start therapy, basically. So that was kind of one of the ways that I helped encourage her to do it, is like, because I'm also doing this. And I haven't stopped since, actually. So having that opportunity, that bi-weekly opportunity to kind of process what I'm going through has really helped me. Like, it's helped me get to know myself on a different level. Another key element was finding myself in moments of frustration and tiredness and just not having the tools. Like, there was a time for a while after we lost Isla where I was handling like the brunt of Evie, like taking care of Abby, because like that's what I could do. Like Sarah was working through her stuff. I could take care of Abby, like, so I was doing morning routine, I was doing night routine, but like she's a 2-year-old and she doesn't, like, she has her emotions. She like, she doesn't want to brush her teeth. And there were times where like I would lose my shit, or like I had the choice of either not letting her brush her teeth or like I would force her to brush her teeth. And there were key moments like that where I'm like finding myself like literally shoving like the toothbrush into my daughter's mouth to brush her teeth. I'm like, is this the dad I want to be? Like, right. What does this teach her? It gets her teeth clean, sure.
Yeah.
But like at what cost, you know? And so just like recognizing like the individual I am, like that is directly going to shape and influence who Evie becomes. And was I being strong in the moment? In a sense, yes, because like I set this boundary, you're brushing your teeth and like no ifs, ands, or buts. But on the other hand, I was taking the easy route because I was angry. It was like, this is my way or the highway. And that just didn't seem the answer to me. So I'll wrap it up by saying like, I still don't know what that way forward is fully, but that's part of the reason why I'm like talking here with you and like have the Why Dad podcast, is because I want to figure out what that is. And I think it's a balance between setting those strong boundaries, but also being able to meet my kids where they're at and help them recognize and process their emotions. But how am I going to do that if I can't recognize and process my emotions?
Right.
So that's what strength, like a new vision of strength became for me. It's like, it's not just being strong and resolute and unbreakable, but rather it's somebody who is willing to get into the weeds of their own weaknesses, of their own shortcomings, and put in the work. Those are the two reasons that have kind of shaped that mindset.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just wrapped all of the mantras within the Daughter podcast in one, right? You're being mindful of who you are, and you're being mindful of how you're coming across to your child. Even with all of this other baggage, like your kid doesn't know that or ultimately care, right? She's 2 at the time, and 2-year-olds just care about that one little person and their needs at the very moment. But you're being mindful of that. And you described strength so eloquently, because the Daughter podcast, we want to create stronger, more mindful, and more present fathers, right? So your mindfulness is getting to notice those weak points of yours, right? If my biceps are weak, I go and do curls because that will strengthen them. You're saying these other aspects of my life are weak, I'm going to go strengthen them. That is exactly what we talk about when we say we want you to be stronger for your daughter and your family. The mindfulness takes you there. And ultimately, if you can do those two very well, if you can be very mindful, if you can find all your weaknesses and get them stronger, you're going to find that presence, that real presence in your child's life. And just like you, and I've said this many times, I don't say those behind a pulpit. Like, I'm in the trench trying to figure those out, just like you are, just like all you guys listening. Like, we are trying to figure out how to really find the presence that we need to have for our children.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think you've kind of alluded to this, but one of the things that motivates me the most about this whole growing as a dad and like it being a journey is we're not modeling perfection for our kids.
Yeah.
But we're modeling that it's a process, it's a journey, it's a fight. By modeling that process, we're showing them this is how you do it. This is how you recognize your shortcomings. This is how you take them, face them head on, and this is how you become the person that you want to be. As opposed to, a while back I was talking to a dad, and I forget his exact words, but his idea of being strong was not showing any emotions to his kids. Was not showing anger, but also not showing sadness, not showing indecision, not showing any of that.
Robot.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, but then how does that child? And I mean, this guy is a great guy, a great dad, and he's going through his own journey. But like, in my mind, like if I were to take that approach with my kids, like what would my kids see? They would see somebody who seemingly knows everything and seemingly is perfect. And if it's not done my dad's way, then that's the wrong way. Right. And what would benefit my like Evie and Liam more? Showing like, okay, I must be perfect, like the imperfect dad that my dad is, or showing like, oh, I get to decide the type of person I want to be, and like he's showing me the tools to become that individual.
Yep. No, it's very true, and I, for the longest time, at least I know when my first daughter was born, that was my mindset. Like, I'm just gonna be strong, and not that I was completely robotic. Like, I definitely like to smile at her and do those things. But to this day, I've got 3 daughters. My youngest is 5. To this day, they'll be like, I don't think we ever really see you cry, right? And I'm like, first of all, I haven't, like, I don't know, I just don't cry. And you could go into therapy for that, I'm sure, at some point. I'm not going to go into that because I don't know. But they have seen me cry probably a couple of times, and they're very specific times. And most of the time, it's either something happy or deeply emotional with my daughters, right? So they've seen that. But to your point, before, my whole thought process was like, nope, like if I, you know, hit my knee, like I'll be stoic. If I do this, I'll be stoic. Well, then life has a hold of you, and then if you don't figure out how to just take that little tiny issue or mistake in a good way, as we mentioned, they tend to come out as anger because you're still doing it. You're still you're still taking care of that in one way or another. It just tends to come out in a different manner. So I've probably been guilty of that. And again, I don't think I was robotic, but I think the mindset was kind of the same. Like, nope, I just got to be like, they got to know that I'm just strong, right?
Yeah.
But again, prior to really looking in, strength was in that specific context, just strong, not all these other things that I started to realize and just way too late as my third child got to us. And I just realized like, oh man, I've sucked with these other two for a long time. And that's essentially the, genesis of this whole thing, because it got to the point where I realized I have missed a lot of things. They have missed a lot of things from me. And I can absolutely be way better than I am. And so that's what it was. But it's taking a different approach to strength that you have to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, but what I love about the example of like you starting the Daughter podcast and like recognizing that with your third child is like, you didn't just like give up and be like, okay, oh, well, it was like, but like better late than never, And now you are showing your kids like, okay, hey, like, I wish I had been a different dad.
Yep.
When you're younger, but like, I'm not going to let that stop me. And now I'm putting in the work, and that will shape, the rest of their lives and your lives with them and your relationships with them. So, I think that's the more that we can do that for our kids, the more that we can do that for our kids, I think that will benefit them and ourselves and our relationship with them.
With as much as you guys have gone through, and obviously your two children now they know Isla, they know Emma to a certain point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look back or look forward, let's say 50 years, right? I'm not saying you're here or you're not. Let's just look 50 years. What do you want your kids to be able to say about your growth as a father and you as a father?
Yeah, that's a great question. Another one. So hopefully I would be in my 80s, and hopefully I'm alive and kicking. And, right now, so this is kind of a tangent, but like right now I've got like full on dad bod, and like that needs to change, because if I do want to be here in my 80s,
Right.
like, and not just like here, but like truly here,
Right.
and maybe like playing with my grandkids or even great grandkids and whatever, like that needs to change. So I'm 70 days into a 90-day challenge to try to shift that habit, to change that habit and build something long and sustainable. So just to say, like, I'm not just throwing words out there. But I want them to see me, like, one, I want to be, cancer and random deaths aside, like I want to do everything I can to be there, alive and present. And that second word is also like the biggest, like, I think hits the nail on the head. I want them to see me as present, to remember me as present. And that doesn't mean like perfectly present, per se, but like I want them to have memories of me, like with them, playing with them, them there when they needed a shoulder to cry on, there when they had a difficult moment in life that they needed to process, and being somebody that they can turn to, and seeing not only as a strong figure who can lead the way, but also as somebody who they can trust and makes them feel loved and somebody that they have a genuine connection with.
Yeah.
You know?
I think what you're saying is genuine presence. They know that you have been present in their life, that's the one person they can turn to and is there. That person is present in their lives. And I think that is a very admirable goal for your children to be able to see that, because if and when attained, that relationship that you have now will only continue to grow. And I say that because a lot of times they say, oh, your kids turn into teenagers and then they leave, and your relationship, like, sure, it will change, but ultimately, it is my belief that if we are truly present in their lives, if they can remember the presence, if they can feel the presence, then the relationship will continue to grow as they go and do their own lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, our lives are like consist of the relationships that we have with those around us, right? And the connections that we make. So if we want our own lives to be next level and we want our kids' lives to be next level, then like, why wouldn't we focus on like building those long and lasting connections? More than just putting food on the table, more than just defining the house rules and all of that. It's beyond.
Let me ask you one last question. Looking back at your experience and the hardships that you and your wife have gone through, what do you tell a dad out there that may be going through the same thing now, whether it's a miscarriage, whether it's, something similar to what happened with Isla? Like, what do you tell that dad to help them start moving forward, help them to help their spouse who obviously is going through something extremely difficult? What do you tell that dude looking for answers at that moment?
Yeah. I definitely don't have the crystal ball or the perfect answer, but I can tell what worked for me, and that was finding my why, and this was the other why of why dad. Like, why am I doing this? Why does it matter? So I would just challenge that dad listening to this to dig into your why. Like, why does being a dad matter to you? Why does being a husband matter to you? And define what that is, not just in this present moment, but kind of like your question of 50 years from now. Like, what does that look like 50 years from now? Like, what does that look like 5 years from now? What does that look like tomorrow? But don't be afraid to ask yourself those tough questions. Ask yourself why, and keep asking yourself why until you have an answer that you can wake up to every day and be proud of every day. And if you need help answering those questions, don't be afraid to reach out for that help. And then once you define it, this is something I struggle with. Like, you got to keep coming back to it. You got to refocus. You got to recenter. Because life happens and you get distracted, and the easy way is constantly presenting itself. And that's one of my biggest challenges is like, how do I stay focused on becoming the dad that I want to be? So you got to define it, and then you got to find a way, whether that's a daily practice or otherwise, to refocus on it.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about Why Dad and where we can find you, where we can find the podcast. Just give us a little of that information.
Yeah, so you can find us at whydadpodcast.com or whydad on any streaming platform. We're also Why Dad Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And then that's where we do most of our content. I mean, if you are looking to find me individually, you can find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. But yeah, please give us a look. And if you find anything that is interesting or appealing to you, don't hesitate to reach out.
And guys, just as Paul mentioned, when we're going through these things, I wish I'd had something like the Daughter Podcast, like Why Dad. Essentially, it's a community of information and individuals that are either going through the same, have gone through the same, or are asking the same questions. So find those communities. If you know of someone that can use the information that Paul has, remember to send this to them, share it, and then keep giving us feedback on the show.
Yeah, just to kind of build on what you're saying, like we're just trying, like at least at White Hat, we don't have all the answers, but we're trying to trigger those conversations, you know, to get ourselves to start asking those more important questions. So even if you don't follow us, just don't be afraid to ask those questions and to find, you know, those men in your lives to start having those deeper conversations.
Great point. Paul, man, I thank you so much for getting on here. I know we tried one time and life gets a vote, and life gets in the way. So I'm glad we were able to knock this thing out. Anything else you have for us in the community?
No, man. Thanks for having me. What a great conversation. I'm looking forward to having more of these.
Absolutely, dude. It was awesome, and I greatly appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story with us and sharing your perspective with us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. Remember, subscribe to the podcast. Leave us a review. That's one of the best ways to help us out. And give us some feedback. Let us know what you're thinking of the podcast. And good or bad or ugly, I'll read them all. So until next time, we'll see you all later. Hey, if you enjoy the Daughter Podcast, you'll love what we've got waiting for you at daughterpodcast.com. As soon as you visit, you'll be prompted to join our new email newsletter, a resource packed with valuable insights, practical tips, and powerful perspectives straight from our podcast episodes and incredible guests. Don't miss out on the chance to join the community and strengthen your journey as a father. Visit daughterpodcast.com today and subscribe, because great dads never stop growing.